Hey there, it's me, Nate, and today I want to talk to you guys about Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. And just to get out of the way, I love this book. I think it's a masterpiece. But this is also actually a reread for me. I read this book years ago. I think I was either in high school or maybe like right after I finished high school, and I read it at the time and I loved it. And then I went on to Speaker of the Dead, and then Children of the Mind. And I can't remember if I read Xenocide or not. I may have fell off at that point. But regardless, Ender's Game, I love this book. I was curious, if on this reread I was still gonna like it or not, but especially since I remembered the twist, that happens towards the end, and I still remember like a lot of like the main plot beats of the story. But I still do. I still think that even on a reread, it's great. And on this reread, I was able to, instead of, just like focusing mainly on the plot, I was able to absorb a lot more of the themes that are going on in the story, and the ideas, and how ahead of his time Orson Scott Card was with his ideas for the story and the technology he was thinking about. So, for those who don't know, Ender's Game is a classic sci-fi novel from back in 1985 is when it came out. And it is kind of an alien war story, basically. At least, this first book, Ender's Game, is. Because in this story, it takes place in the future. I don't know if they ever say a specific year, but I picture it myself in like the 2200 or 2100, somewhere in that range. And humanity and Earth is preparing for this third invasion, because we've had two war conflicts with this alien race that humanity calls the Buggers. They're like these like insectoid alien race. And the first time humanity got beat up pretty badly, was able to fight them off, and the second time it was a bit better. And then Mazer Rackham, who is like this hero of like the I almost said Space Marine, but that's Warhammer, of like the IF, like the International Navy, was able to like fight them off. And so now years later, humanity is still preparing for and worried that the Buggers were going to return and try to come back and kill everybody. And so over the years, they have been, they've created like a school and learning platform where they recruit young kids that they see potential in, to try to help find like who can be like their next military leaders and like generals and whatnot. And so that brings us to our main character, Ender Wiggins. His real name is Andrew, but everybody calls him Ender. And he is a third. And by that I mean he is the third child of his family. Which is interesting because in this future, there is, at least, in this part of the world he is in, there is population restrictions. He's from the United States, and different countries of the world have made these kind of like factions. So like Russia and Asia, and like I think from like Russia to Pakistan is the Warsaw Pact, and then like the Americas and that part of the world is called the Hegemony. And the Hegemony have a population limitation law where families can only have 2 children. But after testing Ender's older siblings, Peter, who's the eldest, was super gifted, has the same level of intelligence as Ender, but was too violent. And then the middle child, Valentine, who she was also had the same like kind of like level of intelligence and brilliance, but they saw her as being overly compassionate and empathetic. So the government basically forces Ender's parents to have a third child, and that is Ender. And the government hopes that he will basically be like their Neo, their chosen one, that they can train and push to become their like leader and help them win the war, and destroy the buggers. And this book, it's so interesting, because so let me get back to the plot. So Ender, he ends up agreeing to go off to space to train. So he goes to the battle school where he is tested and put through the ringer, and like trial after trial as they try to forge him into be like the perfect soldier, the perfect commander, to help them reach their goals of defeating the buggers. And in that, like, each chapter, from Ender's point of view, we get like, it'll start off, it'll be from the adult's perspective, whether that's Colonel Graff, who's like the head of the battle school and is like the one kind of like overseeing like Ender's development and like what kind of like how they manipulate his environment, whether it's the test that he does, how they treat him and compared to the other students, how they manipulate the information around him, and like the constant like surveillance of him. We get like their perspective. We get like a passage of the adults. So it'll be like it's usually like Colonel Graff either talking to somebody from the military, looking for an update on like how far away is Ender to being like complete, or Colonel Graff talking to one of the teachers or supervisors in the school who's like worried that Colonel Graff is going too far in what he's doing. And it's just like, it's really interesting. And that's like one of the things that this, the themes of this book, it really talks about how, like the isolation that they put Ender through by like separating him from not only like the other students but even from his family. Like all of his letters that he would send back home, his family back home never gets them, and he never gets to receive any of the letters from his family. And they, by treating Ender differently from all the other students, they socially isolate him. To try to like make him like self-dependent, and so that way he is so far removed from everybody, from all the other students, that he never they think that it will, if he becomes too dependent on anybody else, it will limit his creativity, and they need like a creative genius to help them out of their situation. and like the technology also that Orson Scott Card talks about, whether it's like the games or like they talk about the net, like, and it's like so far ahead of like, he was thinking about like what video games and like technology would be. And like when he's talking about the net, it's basically like forums and stuff that people are using for discussions and talking about the world. But it is, in a lot of ways, he is also talking about like social media and propaganda, and like influencers, about people, how you can intentionally manipulate and spread misinformation or use information one way or another to incentivize politics in the world and policy. It's really fascinating. It was really gripping to me because, like, more so, like I said before, since I remembered so much of what the plot was gonna be, I was really focusing on these themes and like more of like the characters outside of Ender than Ender himself, because there are a couple sections, a few chapters where it focuses more on Valentine and Peter back on Earth, and to be honest, I don't really find them that interesting as characters. They feel more like, hey, I need like this like subplot to be happening back on Earth, and like Ender has so much already happening with him that I can't tie Ender to like this other plot of like the government stuff that's happening back on Earth. So he has like Valentine and Peter, their story do it, and it happens really quick. It's like in context of like what they're dealing with, it's like it goes through it very quickly, and you would think that you would want like them to you would want Card to flesh that out a bit more, but this book, it's so well paced. It's only like 300 pages, so I feel like it's like probably for the better that we don't spend so much time with those two characters, because it keeps the book feeling nice and brisk. Whew. I've been talking so much. I'm gonna need some water after this. But it keeps the book feeling so nice and brisk and like maintains the pace. But so if I had to give a fault, I would say that the parts of Valentine and Peter feel a little bit, half-baked in comparison to, the rest of the story. But I think that's like, well, I should say this. Orson Scott Card, he has had a lot of controversy over the years with his own like personal thoughts about about people. And as for me, I try to really separate the art from the artist if I can. And that's easier or harder for everybody, so no judgments. But I think if you can ignore the preconceptions that you may have based on Orson Scott Card or his politics or the things he said or his beliefs, I think you can find yourself having a really great time reading Ender's Game. I'd recommend the book to anybody, really. Yeah, and I think, and as for my score, I think this book is like a masterpiece. I think it's a classic. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. It's the first one I've ever done on this channel. I think it really holds up. This book is over 40 years old now, and I think it's still great to this day, and I recommend it to anybody. Like I mentioned on what I'm reading this week, my next review, well, the next book I'm reading is Brotherhood by Mike Chen. That's a Star Wars novel. So hopefully I should have that done and have a review for that out next week. We'll see how that goes. But until then, if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video, and have a good day. Until next time, thank you.